What is going on, guys? It's Thursday night, so we are having the CBSI Bolo show. Thank you to everyone that's joining into the chat right now. I want to give a huge shout out because before we even went live tonight, Ken Takers gave us a big $50 super chat. So I want to shout him out and say thanks for that. And as always, with me to talk about the best comics that came out this week is my co-host, Jack DeMeo, aka Mr. Bolo. What's going on, buddy?
Very, very busy day preparing for a convention this weekend doing Charlotte Comic Con. So I've been in full bag and board mode, price mode. So yeah, I've had my hands in comics all day today. But as Brian said, for those of you who are watching for the first time or may not be aware, I am Jack DeMeo, aka Mr. Bolo. Bolo, of course, stands for Be on the Lookout. And this is the CBSI Bolo Show, which is a show to talk about the CBSI Bolo list. The Bolo list is the list that comes out on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, comicbookinvest.com, the Simpleman's Comics YouTube channel, Simpleman's Comics Patreon, everywhere that you find the CBSI network of social media platforms. And it is a list comprised of the most talked about books on social media leading up to New Comic Book Day to give you, the comic collector, speculator, investor, whoever you may be, a little heads up, a little advantage. I like to call it Comics Cliff Notes. Let you know what others are talking about so you can try to predict the market and make those buying decisions for yourself. And again, at the Simpleman's Comics YouTube channel, we always say, buy what you like, and you'll never be unhappy with your collection.
Right, so bring us both in here real quick. While we got people coming in the chat, want to shout some people out. We got Sarah, we got Comic Jabroni, we got the Comic Book Homie, we got Comic Book Andy. So it looks like we got the right crew in here because we got a lot of comic book names in here. We got Mark the Cuddy Sark, Carter Lee. So you guys in the chat right now, let us know. Being live is that tricky SOB. So how's the video? How's the audio? Last week it was a little different. We did it recorded. So also let us know. Do you prefer it live or do you like it recorded? Because we've gone back and forth ourselves. I was actually out of town with my family on vacation at Hershey Park, which was fun, but it was hot. But I'm glad to be back with the Simpleman's Comic family to talk about this week's Bolo list. But before we get into it, we want to make sure that you know that there is an audio version of this. It's available on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play, as well as we do have a sponsor for this show, and it's Nick Dwortman at SlabbedHeroes.com. Make sure you check out SlabbedHeroes.com for guaranteed modern 9/8 at a great price and great customer service. Love the way he ships books, but he also sells raw copies. So if you're looking for just raw copies and not looking for a graded book, make sure you check out his site because he's got a lot of great prices on there as well. Right, Jack?
Absolutely, and actually, we're going to save this for when we get into the list, but we're going to talk about a book that Slabbed Heroes released today as well when we get into the list.
Yes, sir. So before we get into this week's list, we're going to go right into a little bit of a rewind from last week. And the first book we're going to talk about from last week was House of X #1.
Oh, absolute winner. It's one of those ones, you see those plethora of covers, and I think those of us in the speculation community and collecting community immediately kind of go, ugh, too many covers. Kind of turns you off. I know myself, I was looking at this as a reader book, not a speculation book. But you know what? We were wrong. Cool Mike Morello of Cover Tunes, he featured this book on the Hot and Cold Show, the CBSI Hot and Cold Show, which comes out every Wednesday at 9 p.m. And features our spec super team of contributors and collaborators from comicbookinvest.com. And Mike Morello, again, who writes the Cover Tunes article, spoke about this book. He planted those Krakoa seeds. If you guys haven't seen it, it is absolutely hysterical. And Mike kind of schooled me to the fact that 1 week after this release, we're starting to see some serious above cover price sales for Cover A. And it's truly, truly built on reader buzz. The X kind of community, those looking for X books. And I say X books because, yeah, it's X-Men, but it's also X-Force. It's everything X-related. There's new life in that community. People are excited. And, as an X-Men fan myself who grew up on the 90s cartoon and the Jim Lee run, and I've talked about that several times on this channel, I am so excited for House of X and how great of a read it was. And I'm even more excited for this week's release, Powers of X.
Right. Then the next book that we're going to talk about for the rewind this week was Marvel Comics Presents number 6. This is the second printing, correct?
Yes, second printing. And now, of course, many of you have seen that there is already a solicited third printing. So obviously the second printing did extremely well. Second printing, these second print with the second print incentives, they are certainly, I use this term a lot on the channel, polarizing. And when I say polarizing, I mean people always talk about them. Some people love them. Some people hate them. We get the first appearance of Rain, and we get a cover appearance with that 125 incentive that's featured on the right side of your screen. And that book is doing 2 to 3 times ratio, most of the time about 3 times ratio, coming in at about $75. And the regular cover is selling on eBay regularly for about $4.99, which is cover price, but you got to factor in shipping, so it's really truly selling for double cover already. And again, we're getting that third print variant, which is the 1 in 25 cover, but with black and white and a yellow trade dress. It has not been well received on the market, but it looks like everything involving Rain has been hot. And again, that's another thing we're going to talk about as we get into the list.
Right. So that's going to conclude our rewind from the Bolo list for last week. And we will now, before we get into this week's Bolo list, more people have come into the chat right now. Current news, we got Ben, Holtkamp, Comic Man Danny, of course, Mighty Lovin'. But do us a huge favor, you guys. Click that thumbs up button for us. And what'd you think about this week of comics, Jack?
This was another week where when I looked at the list, I was kind of unimpressed. I thought, there's maybe some fun reads. But it's another one where, again, surprised at how many books ended up doing very well. And I just think it's kind of indicative of where the speculation market is and the feverish nature of speculators and investors trying to find something that they can make money on. What did you think, Brian?
I thought it was good. It's been a busy week for me outside of comics, between work and everything. So I haven't even been able to get to the LCS yet to pick up any books. I did get some books in the mail today. Leave on the Light, Knight's Temporal. Man or Black was one I was really looking forward to. Haven't had a chance to really read anything. And of course, Kanto, which we're always talking about. But when I say we, us in the channel, you, I, Jack, Andy Tomberlin.
Yes.
But
that's another thing you mentioned, Leave on the Light. There's a few books that I think that got released this week that have had some serious buzz that weren't a part of the Bolo list. So, in the chat, we always say this, guys, let us know what books you love that weren't a part of the list, because I definitely think there were a few of them.
Right. I think Avengers 22 was there was some buzz around that, I think.
People are excited for Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
What was that? There was an independent title.
The Source Point?
That I saw a lot of talk of. Yeah, the Love book.
Yeah.
Andy Tomberlin from the Indie Spotlight series. Again, if you guys aren't following Andy Tomberlin on Instagram, I really suggest you do. My man drops some serious Bolo knowledge on, some independent books and what they're doing. And a lot of times it's books that you may not be aware of. As much as I do comics and as much time as I spend in the comic game, he is always schooling me to books that I did not see coming. So make sure you follow at Indie Spotlight series on Instagram, because you are going to get so much information that is going to help you make those quick flips.
So I got up on the screen right now this week's Bolo list, and Jack kind of touched on it at the beginning of the show, but Bolo list comes out every week. Jack creates it, and it covers the first appearances, reader buzz, and variant buzz. I say Jack creates it, but the meat of it comes from the comic community. He keeps an eye out on social. What are people talking about? What's the buzz people are talking about? But the one thing that is totally Jack's every week is his long-term play that we offer at the end of the show.
Right.
So... And with that being said, we're going to go right into first appearances this week, which was kind of small for the Bolo list. We had 2, right?
Right. Just 2. There were a couple. I'm hearing a couple rumblings in the community about a couple other smaller appearances, but there were 2 major ones that got a lot of attention this week.
Right. So we're going to the first one right now, and that would be another big Marvel book with Powers of X number 1. Again, a lot of covers on here, so I kind of made it just a little collage, a little artsy-fartsy in here. But me, out of all the covers on here, my favorite, which was the Stephanie Hans. I love the freaking huge fan of Stephanie Hans, so that was the one book that I haven't gone to pick up yet, but that's one I got waiting for me.
Yeah, and I would agree on that one. You know what? I think the covers from House of X were maybe a little better than the Powers of X covers. Having said that, I think the speculation on Powers of X is probably a little deeper because of the first appearances. A lot of people were speculating that some of these first appearances may happen in House of X, but nope, they held them off for Powers of X, and we're
They,
coming in.
they even had a new character cover.
Right. So which is where I think speculation it tends to be. You're going to get value on the cover of the new characters,
Yeah.
but we're coming in with 4 first appearances in this book.
Right. And then
So yeah, the 4 first appearances we have Cardinal, Rasputin the Fourth. I don't even know how to pronounce that. Cliobel and Percival, and these are characters that while they're new and they're just debuting in this issue, we've actually known about them for some weeks because they were a part of the marketing for this whole House of X, Powers of X, Jonathan Hickman X book takeover. We saw those design kind of images on all over social media, most major news sites, whether it was Comic Book Resources, Bleeding Cool, any of your major comic book news sources were talking about them. So it really wasn't a surprise. It wasn't something that readers weren't expecting. But being the high print run of this book, I expect this book to do well, similar to what we saw House of X. But I think these are long-term plays. We have to see where Hickman's going to go with these characters. But I often say to you guys on the channel, follow the money. Marvel's putting a lot of money into this whole X-Men advertising. They're putting a lot of effort into the reboot of the whole X-Men franchise. And I don't think they would have created these characters just to be cannon fodder. I think most likely we are going to see these characters play some sort of role in the very near future in the Marvel Comics universe. So I'm kind of bullish on the long-term play of those. And this was one of 3 books that was really a contender to be a long-term play of the week.
right. So we just got a new subscriber to the channel, Key Comics Market. We got another subscriber, so that's good news. And the next book from the first appearance section this week was Spawn 299.
Right. Now, this is a first appearance of the team, the Rapture. There's been some argument because some of these characters appeared before, and this is where it's, again, important to say. This is where the team gets more defined and named. So that's why this is called the first appearance. And again, this is not my list. This is the list of the community, and this is what the community has been calling this as a first appearance. Now, sometimes people pre-release, we can talk first appearance, and sometimes those first appearances won't hold water as time continues. But this is one that I think we're going to have to wait and see where McFarlane is going with this Spawn run to see the long-term kind of value of these characters. There hasn't been a lot of Spawn first appearances outside of that original arc that have really held weight and been in demand, other than maybe some of the other versions of Spawn, similar to like Gunslinger Spawn and things like that. So I think if you're investing in this from a first appearance standpoint, I'm not so sure. If you're putting this together for the run to 300, I can see that. I want to give a shout out to Dan Piercy of the Reading Pile and the Hot and Cold Show, who constantly talks about selling books and sets. This, to me, is the quintessential set-selling book. You put together this Road to 300 set. It's certainly being purchased heavily by dealers, so it's not like it's going to be short printed, but we've seen this time and time again that Spawn back issues do extremely well. They get gobbled up by collectors who want to hold these books in their collection, and eventually you start to dry up on the secondary market, and that's when you see prices rise.
Right. So that's going to bring us to the conclusion of the first appearance section this week. We got more people rolling into the chat. Robert Austin. We got Anthony Burdick. Caleb Comic Smurf. As always, guys, if you're in the chat and you have a YouTube channel, make sure you put your channel name in the chat so other people can see it. It's all one big community here. So put your YouTube channel in the chat and let other people check out your content and sub you up. But we're going to roll now into the Reader Buzz section.
Sorry about that, guys. Yep, I think that graphic was too powerful for the YouTube comic community to handle. Yeah. But yeah, so I was sitting there going on a tangent when the channel cut out on us. But what I was saying was when Brian and I really started focusing our content on New Comic Book Day and all of these releases and some of this Bolo stuff, one thing we really talked about was reader buzz. Reader buzz was kind of an under-talked about and underserved market in the speculation community. A lot of us, when we were coming up in the speculation game, we've said this several times before on the channel, Brian and I, we've been in this game at this point 7, 8, 9 years. A lot of times it was the type of thing where people didn't focus on reading the books. They focused on, the first appearance and the hot cover. And what would end up happening is books would get reader buzz. You'd get the issues 4, 6 on certain titles. And then all of a sudden you realize, wow, issue number 1 is going for huge money. And people would be trying to jump back and get those issues. Well, people have picked up on that trend. And we're starting to see books that are purely like reading titles that traditionally wouldn't have been secondary market books blow up. And a prime example of that is the book that's on your screen right now, Kanto. And obviously, now we talked about Kanto here on the Simpleman's Comics YouTube channel. We had the creators David Boer and Drew Zucker on the channel to talk about, the upcoming release of this book. They were real hopeful, but, nervous because you just don't know what the result is going to be. And the community has eaten this book up. Issue number 1 was a huge success. We've seen that book appear on the Hot 10. We've seen the book appear on the Hot and Cold list. And it has been a Bolo list regular. And this week we saw 2 different Kanto releases, but right now we're going to talk about Kanto number 2. The unfortunate thing about this book is Kanto number 2, cover A, came with a similar print defect that we saw with Kanto number 1. Now, this print defect is pressable, and grading companies have tended to be pretty lenient on Kanto. I think they understand that there is, are we having some issues?
Yeah, it looks like there's a YouTube issue going on with streams, but...
Well, we're just going to have to rock through that, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, Kanto it had the same printer issue. And I haven't gotten a good idea of where this is coming from. It doesn't seem like this is coming from Diamond, who definitely tends to get a ton of blame for these types of issues. It seems like this is coming from whoever IDW has printing up these books, especially to have the same kind of problem as issue number 1. It seems like they didn't really learn and correct. But part of that is you have to understand, FOC for number 2, that was passed by the time issue number 1 came out. So the reality is, I think none of us in the market really thought about that fact, but the reality is you were probably going to see whatever happened with number 1, number 2, because they were already off to the printer. The hope is that they will get this corrected for number 3. It seems like the incentives were a little bit better shaped. I've seen a lot more crispy copies of the incentives out there. But yeah, we're already seeing this book command major buzz. I saw some crazy lines at various stores. Midtown Comics, I've seen pictures of people waiting outside. And the 2 things that it seemed like every comic family member was out there looking for were the 2 IDW releases, this and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So IDW's got some serious momentum going on. Just definitely need to get the printing issue straightened out.
Right. Yeah, that's the only thing I was going to say is they get that printing issue straightened out. And it seemed like Diamond allocated a bunch of copies as well.
Yes, they oversold this book. And this happens where, people try to put those late orders in. And I wish Diamond would just honor those who ordered first, those who were early. The place where Brian and I order our books from, they ended up getting shorted, but, we had put that order in so far in advance, it's a little frustrating. But yeah, I just don't agree with how Diamond went about doing that. And I just want to say, anybody in the chat that's having an issue with the video, if you close it and come right back into it, you should be back up seeing the video version rather than just looking at that loading screen.
Right. Or just F5, refresh the page.
There you go. Yeah, if you're on the laptop.
Yeah. So the next one on the Reader Buzz section was a lot of Reader Buzz for this, evidently, and we're talking about Gut Ghost number 1.
Oh my God, yes. Gut Ghost #1 was the talk of our Patreon Discord chat for the last couple days. All of my Discord people, you know who you are. You guys had Gut Ghost fever this
Yeah.
week. This is not a book that Brian and I have been too hype about for different reasons. Brian, I'll let you kind of talk about your feelings on it. For me, while originally I was kind of on board with the Gut Ghost hype. I got to meet Enzo Garza at Heroes Con. I thought, I checked out the Ash Can. I felt good about this book. I didn't realize how many times Gut Ghost has truly appeared previously um, to this book being released. At this point, we're talking about a Free Comic Book Day issue, an Ash Can, Heavy Metal Magazine, a self-published version, I think it's Italian released book on, I think it's like Woe Comics or something of that nature. And then I've got to shout out Mighty Mel V from the Mighty Mel V YouTube channel, home of the Drunken Chat, who posted on Instagram today a piece of his Easel of Elevation. And he pointed out that Gut Ghost actually appears on the back cover of the Spread #24, Spread 24, which is a popular Justin Jordan book, which we're going to talk about a little Justin Jordan as well. So it is incredible how many times Gut Ghost has appeared before. But I definitely want to say Bolo on that Spread book, because if Gut Ghost continues to be popular, that Spread 24 book isn't like super readily available, but at the same point isn't expensive. And it certainly predates this #1. So that's definitely something to keep an eye out for. Now we're going to talk about the variants right here, right, Brian?
Yes, I got that right. Well, I got the secret variant.
Right. So we've got secret variant and a Scout web store exclusive. Now Scout does the web store exclusives for every one of their #1 releases. That's pretty typical. It usually carries about a $20 price tag. It's usually limited to a few hundred copies. So that's pretty typical of Scout's kind of release formula. But something I didn't really love was the fact that I had heard from, again, Andy Tomberlin of the Indie Spotlight series. He reached out to me and was like, hey, man, we can't publicize this, but there's a secret variant. And I was like, okay, that's something that could be major. That could get people's attention. And the rumor was there was a 350 print run. James Hake, the CEO, said there's actually 300. He believed originally that 50 were going to the creator. But then apparently only 100 of those copies ended up at LCS's, and 200 got put on the Scout web store. Now, the problem I have with that, and it's not, again, I'm not faulting Scout. They're doing what they got to do. But at the same point, it causes a couple. First off, it's not a secret variant when you put it up for pre-sale. So I don't like that term secret. It's maybe an unannounced variant, but the typical secret variants that we've seen in the market hit stores and you don't know it till kind of they show up from Diamond. We knew about this one a couple days in advance because they had put it up on their website. The other problem I have is that they were selling it for $10, which is certainly not a total gouge price, but if I'm at LCS and I get this book in and the publisher's selling it for 10, I'm gonna mark it up. So I think it ends up inflating that price. The beauty of secret variants is that hunt, going to the LCS and trying to find that book on the shelf that is rarer than the regular cover. We saw that with whether it was the pink signatures from Skybound Books, whether it was that little frog on Oblivion Song 2, whether it was Marvel with that silly Zilly Pig book that had the poop emoji.
Yeah.
Those were all examples of books that caused buzz. And I mean, get that pig book is the prime example. There's nobody would have cared about that book had that emoji not been there. And that causes true demand. This was a little more manufactured demand by selling on the site. Again, we've had James Hake on the channel. He's a good dude. It's just not the way I necessarily would have done it. And I got to keep it real here on the Simpleman's Comics YouTube channel and the cbsibolo show. I don't love that move.
Right. I mean, My whole thing about the book is based purely on mostly ignorance because I just didn't understand what the buzz was for the book, why it was getting so much buzz, especially like you said, for someone that it's not really a first appearance when the characters appeared multiple times in heavy metal and other books. But I just considered I was not in the know, and if everyone's liking the book that much and it's moving, good for them. It's just not a book that was interesting to me, so I'm gonna sit this one out.
Well, and then we got so many people in the community that went FOMO chasing it, and ended up, finding out like LCSs didn't really order it that heavy. So, a lot of LCSs, man, they're just going through that previews, and you see a title like this, nothing necessarily screamed to them they had to order it, and then you got to ask yourself, are you buying it because you think it's going to be some great read, or are you buying it just because everybody else is talking about it? Which is why, again, I say, don't just buy every book because it's on a Bolo list or it's on Simpleman's Comics Weekly Picks. And I use our content as an example. I'm saying, man, I'm being transparent as I can be. There's certainly tons of YouTube comic channels out there that are out there spotlighting upcoming books. I'm not trying to throw shade on any of them, so I'm saying directly with us, like, you don't just buy a book because somebody says it could be hot. You got to do it on your own. But if people really believe in this book, more power to them. I know, again, Mel V from the Mighty Mel V YouTube channel, the Hot and Cold Show, host of the Drunken Chat, he was huge on this book. He's talked about this book for months. But for him, he's a big fan of the creator. So it's more of a personal thing. For me, as a long-term speculator, I don't see this necessarily going anywhere, because do you really think there's going to be a Ghost movie? I don't. That's not something I can foresee. So you'd be looking animated. I heard somebody say, "Oh, it's the next Rick and Morty," but that is a big ask.
Yeah, and it's just, and especially with the amount of comics that get released each week, it's just easy for a book to get buried, and attention gets shifted to newer books, and stuff just kind of. But who knows? Might be the next great book for all we know.
Yeah, and I'm fine being wrong. I'm not going to get everything right, and that's why we say, you guys got, buy what you like. This was just not one that I think both Brian and I are rarely in agreement about new comic book day releases, but this was one both of us were kind of like, that one's not really for us. And, I definitely think it has a chance of showing up on the Hot 10 list tomorrow. There's no doubt it could end up doing that. I don't know yet, but, I have no doubt it could, because it's certainly doing numbers and it's moving units. But, I'm like I said, I'm more of a long-term guy, because if you got to make those web store orders, you got to get them in stock. And I'm a little bit afraid that the prices that this book's going for, it's not going to maintain, because by the time all of you get those books in the mail, there will be a glutton of these books put online. Because you got to ask yourself, are collectors buying this book, or is it simply speculators buying for this resale purpose? If we're just selling to ourselves, then you're going to end up getting stuck with books and prices will drop.
Right. But, yeah, although I wasn't a fan of Gut Ghost, one book that didn't make the Bolo list that I do enjoy reading that came out this week was Category 0, number 3. And I just enjoy that because it's a great story. I love the writer with it. But, and I did get an advanced copy. Adam Camille usually sends me a PDF version of it to read a couple weeks before release. And it's one book that I've enjoyed reading, especially for not being a big X-Men fan. I do enjoy that book. It's got similar feel with a virus that turns people, gives them mutations. But
so yeah, and I love that book too. You actually put me on that. I think you had read the first 2 issues before I jumped on board and read them. But yeah, I'm surprised you like that book, not being a big X-Men fan. But yeah, we can't say enough about that book. That's a sleeper book. That's a book to take a look at now, because the market isn't talking about it, but it could heat up in the future.
Right. So the next book on the reader buzz was Batman Last Night on Earth number 2.
Right, so coming in again, I believe this is Scott Snyder's last Batman story, I'm hearing. This is the last one he's going to write. Number 1 caught some people off guard. It's a 3-issue set, so you're only looking at issue 2. I think this is definitely one to buy and sell as a set. It's not selling over cover price. We talked about issue 1 was kind of crazy. It was a little tough to follow. You had to kind of give it a couple reads. I haven't read issue 2 yet, but I'm very bullish on this book. I'm very bullish on this series. I think that I just like Black Label in general. I love content that isn't, always talking down to you. That I love the diversity of content that DC's putting out. And I know a lot of people were really upset about the whole Vertigo news, but I love the idea of DC splitting their content into 3 different categories, where you've got kids books, you've got your current releases, and then you've got your, more mature titles. And I think it gives something for everybody. And I'll just say myself, I'm at least going to give a try to everything Black Label that comes out, because I've really enjoyed it from a reading perspective. And I like the square-bound books. I think that they hold up better. I know that UCGC collectors get frustrated because it means there's more 9/8s on the market. I get that. I'm not as big a graded guy as others. Maybe I should be. That's maybe the part of my game I need to up a bit. But I love the book. I love the art. I'm excited to read issue 2. Let us know in the chat if you read it, what you thought, where the story's going. Issue number 1 kind of took you down a road, but didn't give you a whole lot. So I'm definitely interested to read this one and know kind of where we're at with the story and what we're getting out of this. And I've loved everything Scott Snyder has done, Batman related. But don't sleep on his Justice League work, because he's killing Justice League.
Right. Yeah, and the way you're talking about this would be a book I like to pick 3 issues. So they're going to come out with a hardcover for it once it's all done. Especially if you just interested in reading the story, this would be one I'd pick up in that hardcover as they get released. And like I said, I haven't had a chance to read hardly any books this week so far. But the next book, this was one that I was really excited about, and it's Man or Black #1 from Dark Horse. Especially that B cover.
Right, and I definitely agree. First, though, I want to give a shout-out to Perry Comics in the chat with the hashtag Lurkin. We like to talk about other people's YouTube channels. Last night, I watched Perry Comics do a show where he live streamed watching other people's live streams, and then he encouraged his community to go and watch that live stream and subscribe. He gave a lot of underserved and small YouTube channels attention, and turned me on to 3 or 4 YouTube channels I had never heard of. When we talk about YouTube comics community, guys, that's what we're talking about, man. It's about being unselfish, and he made great content out of something that was totally unselfish and put other people on. And the people that it was happening to, I don't even think they could realize it. I watched some guy just be amazed as his live chat went from 2 to 10. And while that may be small numbers, when you're first starting out, that's everything. So shout out to Perry. I just think that is absolutely awesome. If you guys are not following Perry, make sure you give him a follow, give him a subscribe, because when we say YouTube Comics community, when we say Simpleman's Comics family, we mean that. So I see him in the chat with the hashtag Lurkin. That has had me laughing for the last 24 hours. So I had to interrupt the show to give him a shout out, because that's what we're all about. So, we appreciate that.
Right. And I saw in there earlier, I think there's was it Ancient Mariner who said no one ever shouts him out.
Oh yeah, man. Well, you know what? We just did.
Yeah. So yeah, shout out to Ancient Mariner. And yeah, I second Perry's Comics. Make sure you check out his YouTube channel, Reekin and his comics, and Comic Jabroni, especially when they do their group shows. Those are always fun to watch as well. But Man or Black,
yes,
#1 from Dark Horse.
And you and I, this is one that again, everybody's going gut ghost. You and I have been excited about this book. I picked this one up, haven't read it. I went heavy on the B cover. And I kind of went against my own advice. How many times on this show have I said the current indie play is to go cover A?
Right.
That's been the advice, because we saw it and I know Naomi's not an indie book. It's a DC release, but we saw, the reason why I believe that is we saw this week when Brian Michael Bendis appeared on the Seth Meyers show. I posted this on our Instagram. It is one of our most liked, shared, talked about pieces of content we've ever had on our Instagram. And he held up that Naomi #1. And for that reason, we tend to go cover A, because Man or Black, if it gets picked up to be a movie, most mainstream news sources, they're going to go ahead and show off that cover A. But that cover B is so gorgeous, so kind of scary. you don't really know what this book is about going into it. You see that cover B, and if you're a horror fan, you're like, I gotta check this out. And we've talked about it consistently on this channel. Horror is hot right now. Horror titles are doing well. And we're talking about through the summer. Usually horror tends to be seasonal. You get it around Halloween time. You're in the mood for something like that. That's when movies get released that are kind of horror themed. But at the same point, like all through the summer, horror has been consistently killing. And you know who I'm going to give credit to for that? Al Ewing and Immortal Hulk. Because I think that really kind of started the trend of people saying, I like this type of book. And it's not that that necessarily influenced Man or Black. It's just that it's given more attention to it. But Man or Black is a book that's kind of snuck under the radar this week because there's so much attention on a few of the other releases, the IDW books, the Scout books. And because of that, this is low-hanging fruit. But Brian, you know why I like this book really is Netflix. That first look deal with Dark Horse Comics. And that can't be talked about enough. Netflix is the #1 streaming platform. It is the platform that gets the most attention because it's in the most households. So because of that, any show that hits Netflix has a better chance of getting huge distribution. I know there's some people out there in the community that have championed Amazon. Amazon has not been able to compete at the same level, albeit The Boys is amazing, and I loved it. So The Boys literally got me to sign up for Amazon Prime. And so Dan Piercy, I know you've been giving me a hard time about Amazon, but they won me over with that one. But yeah, so Man or Black, I have no doubt will get a look from Netflix. Whether or not it gets optioned or picked up, we'll see. But, those horror titles are hot right now. Netflix has gone long with those. I would not be shocked to see an option kind of quick with that one.
Right. I mean, plus you got one of the best horror writers in Cullen Bunn, so.
Right. Absolutely. And this was a big week for Cullen Bunn, so he had a few releases. So he's as good as they get. We've actually had some conversations with Cullen Bunn. I think you're going to see him on the Simpleman's Comics YouTube channel very soon. Upcoming Indie Spotlight series article for sure. We've had some conversations about Bone Parish and a couple other things, but he's got enough stuff kind of out right now that we need to have that show.
Yes. But the next one in the Reader Buzz section was Paper Girls number 30.
Right, and I don't know if you guys have been reading Paper Girls. I talked about this one before. This is my girlfriend's favorite comic. She absolutely loves this one, but this is the finale. This was the wrap-up, the last issue. And we've seen this before. That last issue, Heat is Real. First off, if you've been reading it, people wanted to see how this story was going to end. You were talking Brian K. Vaughan, Cliff Chang. This was a book that has gotten a lot of critical acclaim, and then we've recently seen it picked up for adaptation. So I believe it's Amazon, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
So, I would have been skeptical about it, but after The Boys, I'm like, I don't know, because The Boys was so good, and then on top of being good, we're seeing heat in the market for The Boys. Because of that, I think that, we could be entering a new speculation field with this. So, yeah, this is the definition of a Reader Buzz book. People weren't looking at it for first appearances or anything like that. But we've seen these last issues. Sometimes the print run drops off, and these books can get hot later on down the road.
Right. This is one of those books where I picked up like the first couple issues, read the arc, and then kind of just slid off of it. And then next thing I know, of course, it gets optioned, and now I want to catch up to the story because I'm like, wait a minute, it was that good? So yeah, I actually ordered a couple trades from Amazon. But I want to thank also, we got a super chat from Anthony. But before, when Jack was talking, we also got another super chat, and that was from Gotham City Comics. So I want to make sure we give them recognition. Thanks so much for the super chat.
Gotham City Comics is a great retailer. Great retailer.
Yeah. So maybe we can, I don't know, use that to get YouTube to fix the stream.
Yes. And hey, guys, we're literally before we jumped on the mic, Brian and I are constantly talking about site upgrades. So your super chats are greatly appreciated. They don't go to frivolous things. Brian and I have yet to pull money out of this channel. Well, everything that we make, whether it's Bolo boxes on Patreon subscriptions, whether it's your super chats, we're putting back into the channel. So whether it's high streaming cameras, mic improvements, we were just talking about, Mr. Bolo needs a new laptop. All of these things, we're going along with this. We're in it for the long haul. We want to give you guys consistent content week in and week out. And, we mean what we say. This is the CBSI network. We have a number of new CBSI programming coming to the channel. So, we appreciate everything you guys are doing. We mean what we say, Simpleman's Comics family and community, and everything you guys are giving, we want to give back and put back out to you guys.
Right. So the next book on the Reader Buzz section was Batman Who Laughs number 7. Now, I know we've had a lot of discussion lately where we talk about, especially in the hot and cold, where the DC cover Bs have been kind of cold lately. But when I'm looking at these, I freaking love this David Finch cover. And that's the one that I picked up this week. Cold or not, awesome cover. So I picked up the David Finch variant.
And see, now I got to come back to X-Men again. I think I'm the same way because David Finch, when I got back into comics, was killing variants on X-Men when he had that whole Messiah Complex run where he had X-Force and X-Men and Uncanny X-Men and all of those different variants. I was picking those up. I made great money on those. And so I'm kind of partial to David Finch. I totally agree. This was originally supposed to be a 6-issue miniseries. It got extended to a 7. This issue saw the I don't want to say first appearance, but the introduction of the Dark Universe Gordon. But I think the real news here is the swing and miss of some speculators who were hoping or, thinking that we were going to see a Harley Who Laughs. And that came from some of the artwork that was used for store exclusive variants. And it's always hard to know, did a store just do that conceptually, to sell books? Or, which happens, unfortunately, or was that interior art information? Because when you're creating a variant, sometimes you can get advanced copies and advanced information through retailer groups with the publisher. But, alas, we did not get a Harley Who Laughs. Hopefully, if they continue to create the universe around Batman Who Laughs, we may get that character at some point because people were feverish for that. And I was saying to Brian earlier in the week, man, if they go Harley Who Laughs in this issue is going to go nuclear. Because think about what Batman Who Laughs does. Right. Not to say that Harley Who Laughs Harley's a bigger character than Batman, but speculation-wise, over the last 10 years, Harley's been as big as DC gets.
Right. So we also got another super another super chat from Ben. So thank you so much, Ben Holtkamp, for that as well.
And, absolutely.
So let me ask you this. How do you think this Batman Who Laughs series will do over time?
I feel very strongly about it. Now again, I get full transparency. I invested good money in this series. I ordered this one heavy. So right now I'm sitting there looking like a loss. I'm looking like I got cover price books that I can't really turn a profit on. But you got to look at what the first appearance of Batman Who Laughs is still in heavy, heavy demand. They're creating toys, statues, high-end collectibles, clothing around this character. Seems like DC is going to go along with this character. I would have laughed if you would have talked about a Batman Who Laughs appearance in a movie at some point. I would have said no way. I think that's certainly possible. And because of those reasons, I believe that this could be one of those sets. Whether you compare it to The Dark Knight or something like that. This could be one of those sets where people will want to go back and get it. So again, Dan Piercy method. This to me is a set building. And I built cover A sets and cover B sets. And I built master sets that have cover A and cover B. Yeah. So I'm going to hold these. I'm okay holding these. I'm going to wait till I can turn the right profit. I don't want to flip these for $1 over cover or something like that. But yeah, I feel good about it. How do you feel, Brian?
I'm kind of the same way. And then before I go any further, also want to thank Iron Man in the chat as well. Just gave us another super chat. So really appreciate that. And we also had Perry talking about animated movie for this. I think, I like the series just because I think it's a great piece of Batman history. Because we'll always go back to the Teen Titans 12 and when Batman Who Laughs first came out and the whole hype cycle for that. So regardless of whether this book, I think it'll always kind of up and down, hills and valleys type thing where it'll get hot for a little bit and then kind of come back down. But animated movie I'd love to see, but not just like the normal Warner Brothers animated type movie, but like the Miles Morales Spider-Verse type.
Yeah, they
You know?
got. We've talked about that a few times. They got to step it up. Look, I sound silly almost saying that because DC has dominated.
Yeah, their animated movies are
Animated
way better
films.
than Marvel's.
Right, but Marvel just put one out in theaters
Yeah.
that has changed the kind of zeitgeist of animated movies. The fact that like I had family members who would have never watched an animated movie watching, Spider-Verse and loving it. I have family members who wouldn't even watch comic book movies watching Spider-Verse and loving it. So I really think that, if DC can kind of take what they're already doing well and then release it in kind of a theater format, I absolutely agree.
Right.
But I go for the back issue, Bolo. There's some underserved keys. I think that as all the attention has gone into the solo series and people are still paying so much attention to Batman, look at what the Funko Pops, to bring up a little CBSI toys, another kind of combo. Look at what the Funko Pops have done for, whether it's the Red Death or that Green Lantern Dark Universe character. These, I'm drawing a blank on the name. You guys will have to help me out in the chat. But they have sold exceptionally well. I think in those first appearances, while still in demand, have dropped a bit from where they once were. And then I'm going to throw out Teen Titans 12, the second print. When I was pricing books for this convention, I found a stack of those. I was like, what are these going for? I looked them up. They're not going for hardly anything. So I think that's a stealth buy.
Right. So I'm pretty sure we're breaking records tonight with Super Chat. I think it's almost like they had that, what is it, the Sarah McLachlan song playing, I guess, when you're talking about your mic and laptop. And
Yeah.
but we're getting some Super Chats. Carter Lee donated money for your camera and laptop. And we got an anonymous matching another Super Chat. So really appreciate that, guys. And, I mean, I can't say enough because, yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm going to go ahead and say this, too. Like, you guys' Super Chats are awesome tonight. Brian and I talked about this right before the show if we were even going to say this. But obviously, we made a major channel announcement today. And, we got a lot of flack today. So, you guys showing your love and support right now, it means a lot. It definitely is awesome. And that's why we do this. Those who are going to hate on that, they don't know what we all know by being a part of this community. So, love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Right. Yes. Definitely. Always community and integrity are like the two priorities that try to carry out on this channel. So really appreciate it. And I knew it was you, Ron. I just didn't want to say it on television. But we're gonna roll right into the next one on the list, and this was Marvel Comics Presents number 7.
Now this is one that sparked a little bit of controversy here. First off, we've got shout out to James with the subscribe. Appreciate that as well.
Dante with the super chat right before it.
Absolutely appreciate that, guys. Blown away. But that Raza variant, the 125 that you see on the right, that was Brian Wood, Mr. Simpleman's Comics over there. That was his pick of the week. I think we're both fans of Raza. I hope I'm saying that right.
That right. Was that 125 or was that 150?
Oh, it might have been 150. I could be wrong on that. But that cover art is amazing. But what I want to talk about is the guts of the book. And we had Rain say she's not Wolverine's daughter. And I could feel the speculator panic set in across the interwebs. People were going nuts. People who spent so much money on these Rain appearances started to freak out. And started to get worried that maybe they had put their money in the wrong place. But calm down, speculators. Calm down. The writer of the book already said, no, she's speaking from, she doesn't consider herself Wolverine's daughter. She is Wolverine's daughter. So don't worry. But you remember, you got to imagine. Let's play make-believe here for a second now. And for some of you, this may be reality. Some of you may have grown up this way. If you grew up your whole life with an absentee parent, and then suddenly got thrust into a position where that parent was a part of your life, you may not feel like, even though that person physically is your parent, that they deserve that right. And we've made jokes about Wolverine's vast ability to impregnate various women and have children all over the place. So, I think that they're going somewhere with this. To be honest with you, that whole dialogue made me think this book is more investable. That Rain is a more investable character because they're adding layers to this story. Brian and I have actually kind of been anti-Rain because we felt like you got Dakin, you've got X-23, and then you've got a bunch of kids that people don't ever even talk about. Don't forget that old Wild Thing comic from back in the day. But it looks like they're really going somewhere with this. Right? They're really gonna be. There's gonna be something to this character. I think this is a story going places. And you know what? Origin issues don't often anymore. The origin issues used to be keys, right? Back in the day when we were children, the books that you would like look at in Wizard or Overstreet, they would always talk about first appearance, second appearance, and origin. Those three books were key for any character. But we've gotten away from that in the market because we're in the like, what have you done for me lately kind of mode, and there's constantly a new first appearance popping up. So everything's become first appearance driven, variant driven, things like that. So origin issues have fallen off. I gotta be honest with you, Mr. Bolo is a believer in this one long term. If you can get this cover A for cover price, I kind of feel like this one may have some legs long term. I think, and you know what? It'll go well as a set with 6 and 7 together. When you're trying to separate yourself on eBay, you guys know I like to talk process. Not enough channels are talking process. Everybody's talking what book to buy. Nobody's talking how can you turn those books into profit. And there's so many books that get put up and you're competing on eBay. And the only way people tend to think that they can compete is on price. But then you're undercutting yourself and the market, and you're hurting the market as a whole. There's a couple other ways you can compete. There's a lot of them. And, we got to do a whole one-shot episode on that. And one of them certainly like picture quality and things like that. But another one is to find these issues like this to lot up with your first appearance. And, you can hit a collector who wants both and wants to get them both at one time. And that gives you value over that other person who only has that one issue. So I could see that happening in the market for sure. This is a book I actually am surprised I like.
Yeah, so I'm apologizing in the chat because I said I questioned if it was a 1 in 50, and it's definitely a 1 in 25. And so I'm getting a hard time in there. But I was also mixing it up. I was mixing it up with those Jim Bartel variants they keep putting out.
Right, but that's why you guys are awesome. Because if we're ever caught slipping,
yep,
you guys are gonna be right there to pick us up. That's why right now we got 111 soldiers strong in the chat.
Yes, yeah. Speaking of soldiers, the next book, kind of like soldiers, more like knights, but we got Knights Temporal #1 from Aftershock, and this had 3 different covers, right?
Right. So here's another Cullen Bunn book, right?
Yep.
So yeah, this one, I was literally doing my research on this book right before we jumped on. There was some serious heat on this book, say a week ago. Seems like that heat kind of fell back a bit. That one in 10 is doing about $10 to $13, so it's about ratio a little over, which is good. Look, that's good on release date. The regular book is selling at cover price. But where the real money is that 1 in 25 variant is doing about $50. And I think it just comes from a smaller print run on these indie books. You don't see too many of these types of books carry that 1 in 25 incentive. So, shout out to all you speculators who went out there and grabbed that book at ratio or below, because that's paying off. And this is the book where I'm going to say we're going to talk about our sponsor for a second, because Slabbed Heroes made their exclusive variant debut with this book, having a 2-book set. Absolutely gorgeous cover where you got the flames on the Virgin cover. I think shout out to Nick, man. He announced that he was going to be quitting his job on this channel, and we were so excited for him. And he talked back then about wanting to do an exclusive variant, and here he is getting his feet wet with an Aftershock book, and then he's going to follow it up with an absolute carnage drop soon. So again, shout out to Nick, man. He's doing his thing with Slabbed Heroes. We've been happy to grow with him. He's a good dude. And again, that's another perk for our Patreon members. Not to overly plug, but we want to let you know we do have a Patreon group, a bunch of different levels. We've got the Bolo boxes on the top level, but on top of the Bolo boxes, Nick gives you access to discount codes, there's an exclusive collection just for Patreon family members, with a lot of deals, a lot of great signed books. So again, shout out to Nick from Slabbed Heroes doing his thing. And if you guys want to pick up this book, you should head to the website now. Well, not now, after the show.
Right. So yeah, and he's also got signed graded copies up there, which you probably said while I was in the chat because I do stuff like that. But also, I'm anxious. Has anyone in the chat read this book? Because this is one that looked interesting to me. I do have it on my pull list, but I haven't gone to pick it up yet. But Aftershock's one of those ones that usually, when they have titles that come out like this, they usually have me for like the first arc at least, and then I just kind of fade off from, like, was it Lollipop Kids, Dark Arc. Dark Arc was one. Was it? They had Pestilence, right? Wasn't Pestilence Aftershock?
Yep, Baby Teeth was one that had me early, and then I fell off. That's my guy, Donnie Cates.
Right, and then there was one. The covers on Pestilence were freaking fantastic. But there's quite a few Aftershock titles out there. I enjoy them just as much as Vault, Mad Cave. And when you talk to them at cons, definitely go to their booth because they love talking to you, and they would sit there and talk about pretty much any of their books. If you have questions about their books, they answer them up. Although they did lose their PR or social person that they had. What was it? Woo. Her last name was Woo.
Right.
And I remember that because we were joking about Ric Flair shirts. But
I will say, again, another plug for the Simpleman's Comics YouTube channel. I have an interview with Aftershock Comics from Heroes Con at their booth. There's some Bolos in there. Again, we talk about this. When you go to a convention, as soon as you get to the convention, hit up those publisher booths. Because at Heroes Con, Aftershock had some sold-out incentives, some C2E2 variants that were booming on the market. You could have made some serious money by hitting up the Aftershock booth, dropping a couple $100, and turning it into a couple $100 more.
And then chat talking about time jump and flashback, so it reminds me of the old Time Bandits movie. But so the next book, Leave on the Light #1. This is a book that I think it slid like a total of 3 weeks, right? It was supposed to come out, got pushed back. Supposed to come out, got pushed back. Bradley Golden, right, is the writer for this.
Yes, good dude.
Yes, good dude. Very active on social.
Very.
So he sent advanced copies to this, was able to read the PDF. I really enjoyed the book. And like I said during the weekly picks, it reminds me of that 80s horror movie Shocker, where guy gets electrocuted, death penalty, and then comes back basically seeking revenge on the family that had him executed. But there was a regular cover, and then there was also a $10 foil variant.
Yes. And there's an incredibly funny post from my guy, Carolina Chris 26 on Instagram. Definite Simpleman's Comics family member. Saw him at Heroes Con. All of a sudden I heard Bolo, and there's my guy right there. He was not happy when he got to his LCS and saw that cover was $10. So just for the kind of gold printing. So that's interesting.
It was like so-called foil, or I forget what he said.
Yeah, and he wasn't the only one. I feel like I've said his name now like 5 times in this episode, but Dan Pierce, he talked about that too with new segments, controversial comics, confrontational comics. Excuse me, Dan, my fault. People were not happy with that. So very interesting. But again, Bradley Golden, good dude. Antarctic Press, we've talked about this before. As a company, they've struggled with consistency. I have faith in Bradley Golden in this book. Antarctic Press still's got to prove it to me.
Right, and I think he's creating like a shared horror universe within Antarctic Press, right, with horror comics, I believe, from what he was saying. So that'd be interesting to see how it plays out. And like we said, horror comics are definitely on the rise right now. They're very popular. But I really enjoyed Leave on the Light. I'd definitely pick up issue #2, especially see where it's going. But a huge shout out to Bradley Golden. And he keeps wanting to come on the show, so we got to figure out a time where we can have him on the Indie Spotlight as well.
Yes, the Indie Spotlight series show is going to be returning to the CBS. I almost said the CBSI network, but that is what it is. The CBSI Bolo show, not the Bolo show. I'm all over the place. Simpleman's Comics YouTube channel. We will definitely be returning. Andy is back in action. So again, shout out to Andy, and we've definitely got some things in the work. I think we'll definitely have Bradley Golden on there. And I want to say again, shout out in the chat, the Pat, Mr. Pat, with the dropping those Canadian ducats on us with the super chat. We super appreciate it.
Right. Yes. I mean, I'm amazed. I can't thank people enough for the super chat, because I'm going to come straight out and be honest. This is not the best Bolo show that I've had, but really appreciate everyone in here talking comics. And we're going to go into the variant buzz section. And this one, we're not going to talk about all of them, because we talked about
this book. And this is where I'm thinking, I don't know if we get any credit for this, because we did tell them, hey, if you guys do a second print, our biggest suggestion is change the cover art. I don't know if they were already planning on doing it, or if they listened to our advice, and maybe, over exaggerating our own self-worth, but I'm glad they did it though, because this cover art is gorgeous. It's been well received in the industry. I expect the second print to come for number 2. I expect them to switch that cover art again. Kanto is on fire, and it could not happen to two better guys. So if you did not get an issue number 1, that number 1 second print is kind of under the radar. I like it as a long-term play, man. I really, really, really do.
Right. And only thing I would say right now is pretty much repeat what you just said, but love the art, love that it's a different cover. And it seemed from what I'm seeing also, as I'm redundant there, but there aren't, for some reason, there's not as many printing issues with the second print, or not as many defects.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. Is I think because issue 2, the FOC was so similar to issue 1. I think whatever happened with issue 1, they'd already put that order in for issue 2.
Right.
So the same thing happened, and then when this got solicited after that, and again, this is all my speculation.
Yeah.
But just from experience, and my father actually worked in the printing industry, my guess would be that when they put that order in, whatever caused that printing issue for issues 1 and 2, they had corrected it by the time of the second print. But we definitely, again, talking about the Indie Spotlight Series show, we got to bring David Boer and Drew Zucker back on the channel, because when they were on last time, they were nervous but excited, and they deserve a victory lap right now for the way this book is doing.
Definitely. And a lot of that is the work they put on their own shoulders.
Yes.
Between the writing, the art, the social outreach, San Diego Comic-Con. I was following them on Instagram as they were at San Diego Comic-Con. Huge reception there, doing signings. So kudos to them. And the story's fantastic.
And I see in the chat from Joshua Vincent, what does FOC stand for? It means final order cutoff. It's the last day that retailers can order books from the distributor and be guaranteed to get those books. Well, you're supposed to be guaranteed. Right. Unfortunately, every now and again, Diamond plays games with allocations.
Yes.
So that when we say FOC, that's what we're saying. Guys, sometimes we use comic industry jargon. If you ever don't know, don't be afraid to ask. I constantly have to remind myself that we have new speculators coming into the market at all times. Don't be scared to ask questions. Right. Nobody here is going to call you a name. Yep. We want to be here to help. That's our job. We do this for you guys, so we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Let us know.
In fact, half the people in the chat helped them out, so that was great.
But that's awesome.
But speaking of great stories and great covers, the next one was Rotobones #1 third print. This cover is freaking phenomenal, and
yes.
If you haven't been reading Rotobones, definitely recommend it. This is one of my favorite reads right now. I'm a big fan of like World War II era slightly. I mean, this is the 50s. But Rotobones, Siberian Gulag. Great story. Kind of violent. So if you don't like violent books, definitely might want to shy away from this. But what are your thoughts, Jack?
Oh, I love it. Did you pick this third print up, Ryan?
Yeah, I actually pre-ordered 4 copies of it.
Okay. I messaged Brian the other day. I was like, man, that Rotobones cover art change is going to be nasty. Because, when they released that second print, they just put the same cover with a different color trade dress. I hate that. That doesn't do anything. It's good for the readers who missed out, but you can still achieve that goal and hit collectors with that cover variant. And boy, did they do it with that third print. It is absolutely incredible. And I agree with you. I don't think anyone can argue that this cover art is even better than the first print. So long term, for this as a possible speculation play, I like that third print. Maybe better than the first print. Should have a smaller print run, and I think the cover's better.
Right. Yeah. Some crazy stuff going on in the chat. But
Officer Andy. Is Andy handling business in there? Shout out to Comic Man Andy, Andy King, who is our new moderator at the Simpleman's Comics YouTube channel. He has earned that. He is absolutely amazing, and he's a moderator as well in our Facebook group. So if you guys are on Facebook, check out the Simpleman's Comics Family Facebook group. Lots of bolos, lots of sharing of information going on there. But yeah, shout out to Andy King, who does a great job and definitely earned that spot as a moderator.
Yeah, speaking of which, with the Simpleman's Comic Family Facebook group, talking about Nick at Slabbed Heroes, he's been posting special discount codes for the Facebook group and flash sales. So definitely worth checking that out. Then the last one well, I'm not going to say the last one. But next one we have is the Carnageized variants, right?
Right. You know what? I think this is a supply and demand thing. You can tell me if you think I'm wrong, Brian. I think speculators got burnt by the Venomized variants. Now, if you guys new to the game and you don't remember the Venomized variants, or you just see them as back issue, when they dropped, the cover art came out and there was so much heat behind them. The one that really stands out to me is that Matina X23 variant. And this was in the height of Matina's craze before he kind of got caught with all of the art copying and theft, or whatever you want to kind of call it. And, people went heavy pre-ordering those books. The problem is everyone went heavy pre-ordering those books. LCSs went heavy pre-ordering those books. Speculators went heavy pre-ordering those books. 9/8s were everywhere. I started seeing 9/8s go for as little as $40. The books never really took off. They ended up on dollar lists on Midtown and TFAW. And I think because of that, when these Carnageized variants got announced, LCSs were skeptical. I think speculators were skeptical. And even though we see this week two of the best cover art examples, in my personal opinion, got released, with the Black Panther one and the Conan one.
Right.
They were under order, so they're selling pretty well. And I think that long term, putting a set together of these Carnageized variants isn't going to be the easiest thing in the world. So whether you sell it as a set or you sell them individual, I think long term there could be a nice speculation play here.
Yeah, especially the ones that have the entrail, the secret variant type stuff to it.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely like the Sienkiewicz, and then actually I liked all of them. That's why we spoke Carnageized variants. These are the four that I actually really liked this week, so I put those up there in the pick. But Conan Barbarian's another one that's Jason Aaron, can't do no wrong. But that and the Savage Sword of Conan's been two books I pick up every month when they come out. Definitely enjoying those. But that's going to bring us to the next one, which is the G.I. Joe. This is the 1 in 10. This is one of the covers that's not the best 1 in 10 variant, but this title has some buzz, especially with this issue, leading into the next arc in G.I. Joe, right?
Right, and you can see the look on my face. I'm so excited to be talking G.I. Joe right now. Check out my new logo. Shout out to Emiliano. Got that nice AKA Mr. Bolo logo. If you don't know what that logo is kind of homaging, of course, I've got the Simpleman's Comics star in there to represent the Simpleman's Comics family everywhere I go, of course. But orange kind of firework look is a kind of homage to the old school Kenner card backs for G.I. Joe. I'm a huge G.I. Joe fan, have been since I was a child. I grew up with the G.I. Joe action figures, and it has followed me into my comics fandom. And so I follow G.I. Joe. I pay attention to G.I. Joe. This is not one that surprised me for two different reasons. Actually, I'll say three different reasons. First off, if you're not familiar with who that person on the cover is, that's Snake Eyes. And you may be like, oh, no, that doesn't look like the Snake Eyes I grew up with. Well, that's because Snake Eyes is dead. And that is the new Snake Eyes, Dawn Moreno, the female Snake Eyes. And before you go saying, oh, man, they did the switch to female, go back and read issues like 212 through 245. Oh my God, did Larry Hama, the original writer who's been writing G.I. Joe through IDW, through Marvel, did he kill that story arc? I mean, it really breathed serious life into G.I. Joe. And if you've been speculating for a while, I know you remember when 212 got hot. I know you remember when 214 got hot, 215 got hot, and then 244, 245 got hot. And that was where we were talking about the death of Snake Eyes, and then the first appearance of John Moreno as Snake Eyes. Those were some serious issues. And this is actually a connecting set. So all the people that are paying $35, $40 for this book right now, I think they may be missing that this connects to the variant that came just before it. And we talk about sale value. One way to differentiate yourself is pick that one dirt cheap, put that together, and you've got a set. I agree with Brian. This maybe isn't the greatest cover art of all time, but I think it's the combination of anything Don Moreno sells. Anything with that new Snake Eyes sells well. The combination of the fact that this is a not heavily ordered book, but it's leading into a storyline that we've been big on. Let me tell you something, guys. When G.I. Joe 266 is red hot, when that's the next Power Rangers 40, you cannot say we did not warn you. Brian, how many times have we brought that book up?
Yeah, at least 5 or 6.
Right, for 3 months, when we saw that in the solicit, and again, I say follow the money. How much effort IDW was putting into that. I want to make the comparison to Turtles 95. That's dangerous. It's not going to be Turtles 95 big. But it is going to do for G.I. Joe similar to what Turtles have done, where, because it's happened before. This Turtles thing didn't surprise me. I'm an IDW guy. And all it takes is one big issue, and then mainstream collectors pay attention. I heard somebody say, why is this book so scarce? Well, G.I. Joe does an average print run of like 7,000 to 10,000 books. So, and then again, they only print the 1 in 10s for the stores that are ordering 10 copies. Most stores are ordering 3 or 4 copies. So these books are scarce. And then you got a white cover, which is tough to get in good shape. A lot of that. 266 starts a run. Brian, I don't know if I remember how big that run is. Is it like 266 to 270 or 275? Yeah. You know, it's a big run, but you got cover Bs. They're going to be action figure connecting covers. I think those are going to be hot. I think they're doubled up on incentives. And let me tell you something. Here's another tip, another process bolo for you. If you're specking on IDW, I've been bringing the community into IDW spec plays. IDW usually only does 1 in 10 variants. Sometimes on issue number 1, they'll do 1 in 25s and 1 in 50s. But when you see an issue like issue 266 have both a 1 in 10 and a 1 in 15 variant, that needs to tip you off something's going on. IDW expects big news from this, and they've probably already let retailers know what's going on. And what we know from the storyline from the solicits is Dawn Moreno, who has Snake Eyes inside her consciousness, the original Snake Eyes. There was briefly in between when the original Snake Eyes died and Dawn Moreno took over, Sean Collins, who first appears in G.I. Joe 30 in the original Marvel arc. I think that's a good back issue bolo for you guys right there. He also cameoed as a child in the back seat, and I'll brag on myself. In my very first article ever for CBSI, I broke the news that he shows up as a child in the back seat of that book and it has to be him because his dad was the Crimson Guard. You see the Crimson Guard get into a car and his child in the back seat. It's got to be Sean Collins. They never said it was Sean Collins, but it's got to be Sean Collins. So that's a cameo. Issue 29. Issue 30 is his first appearance. He took over the reins as Snake Eyes, but, I don't want to spoil too much story. I think you guys should read it. Go pick up those trades. It was awesome. But, yeah, he didn't live up to the mantle, didn't make it. And now it looks like Cobra is going to resurrect him to be kind of a Snake Eyes and go against Don Moreno. So we're going to get a Snake Eyes versus Snake Eyes storyline to me is very reminiscent of that Snake Eyes versus Storm Shadow battle that we all know and love from issue 21, the silent issue. If you're not up on G.I. Joe, go Google the silent issue. Yeah. One of the only comics, maybe the only comic that's ever been released with no words at all. Just straight battle for 30 pages. So, if you can't tell, I'm excited about this G.I. Joe run. I promise you G.I. Joe 266, I'm just going to give it away right now, will be the long-term play of the week that week. So I think that for all of those reasons, their 265 has legs.
Right. So I don't know if do you like GI Joe or no? I wasn't sure.
Yes, there's nothing I like more than GI Joe. My favorite three properties are GI Joe, Transformers, and Ninja Turtles, but nothing more than GI Joe.
Yeah.
You guys, I know we all have that one thing that reminds us of our childhood, and that's what it is for me for GI Joe. My mother's way of punishing me as a kid was to take my GI Joe collector's case filled with hundreds of Kenner figures and put it above the refrigerator where I couldn't reach it, and that was her way of punishing me for misbehaving. And nothing got me in line more than missing my GI Joes. And I see Mark Defiant in the chat. That is actually my younger brother who devastated me when he took my favorite GI Joe action figure, Deep Six, and put it in the garbage disposal. So, Mark, I have not forgotten.
Right. That's funny because me and my older brother, GI Joes were usually we get some figures every now and then, but parents were always telling us how expensive GI Joe was. But yet, our younger brother coming up seemed to get like all the vehicles, and the super expensive GI Joe toys, and we're like, what the hell's going on? But yeah, I was a huge fan of the cartoon. Especially never understood why no one was getting shot, just lasers shooting past people.
Yeah, they're the worst aim of all time.
Like they go to the same academy as stormtroopers, I guess.
But that's where the comic is a little bit more it's a little bit more accurate.
Right.
You know, that the cartoon is different. And I see Ken Tankers in the chat, girlfriend or G.I. Joe. You know what the answer to that is? And I hope my girlfriend sees this. Girlfriend in Baroness cosplay. So Kirby, come on, make that happen.
And that's going to run us right into this week's long-term play, right?
Yes.
So the one book that we haven't talked about, I'm sure everyone's going, what the heck? And that is going to be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 96.
Right. So, yeah, full disclosure, I had G.I. Joe in the long-term play of the week, and I thought, you know what? I just can't do that. I'm being a homer. Let me keep it real with the community. 96 is the long-term play. And I'll also admit, I don't love 96. You might have noticed, and I caught a little bit of flack, I didn't have 96 down as a first appearance. The market can't decide what a first appearance is, so for the purpose of the Bolo list and the purpose of the Bolo show, and honestly for the purpose of Simpleman's Comics YouTube channel, Brian and I have been talking about it, and we're going to follow Marvel's lead with when they put out that advertising on before the X-Men, and we're going to call a first appearance when a character first appears. So Jennica Turtle first appeared in 95. I haven't seen a rule book yet on what's a cameo and what's a first appearance. So if I have one, I'm going to write it myself. And I'm going to say when a character first appears, it's a first appearance, period. So last page, splash page, that was enough for me. I think most of the people talking about this book, and I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here, guys, who are calling this book a first appearance, some of it is innocent. Some of it is just them looking back at, old information. But some of it's comics politics. And if you don't know what I mean by comics politics, we've seen this. Again, guys like Brian and I who have been in this game a long time, we've seen this before, especially in the Google Plus days. Boy, it never was worse than that. You miss out on a book. The book gets expensive. So you start playing those internet politics games and you're typing up, oh, it's not a first appearance. He doesn't appear enough or she doesn't appear enough. The next issue will be a first appearance. And a lot of that's wishful thinking. 95 is a $30 to $40 book in Rising. The incentive is a $70, $100 book. And I think undervalued because it's dropped a little bit. And I think a lot of people want to see 96 as a first appearance because they thought it was going to be a little easier to obtain 96. The reason I say thought is because FOC had already passed. Brian and I went through the ringer trying to deal with some retailer exclusive variants for 96 or 97, but those FOC dates came quick, and it's a little tougher with Turtles because you have to get it approved by Nickelodeon, which is no shade on anybody individually, but that's why you're seeing some terrible store exclusive art for 97 and 98. And why you didn't see any for 96. But, so this book, everybody was in their LCS looking for this book. Most people either struggled to get it or could get, like, a copy. Most stores limited this. So, this book is doing really well. A and B sets are doing very well. It pales in comparison to 95, but they're still doing numbers. The incentive is in huge demand. Last time I checked, I think it was like $40 to $50. I'm not totally up on what it's doing at this moment, but yeah, it's a major issue, but it doesn't really tell a lot of the Jenica story. It's what I call a connector issue, because 95 is incredibly important as that first appearance. And 97 is going to be incredibly important because we already know from IDW, like I'd say leak, but they've put out the information that that's when Jenica's getting that yellow bandana and officially becoming a member of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And so 97, I'll even let you argue with me that 97 is the first appearance. Not the first appearance of Jenica as a turtle, but the first appearance of the new team. You guys know how I feel about team books, but you know what? I got to be honest with you, I kind of like that one. That's probably a first appearance being a team. 96, I can't really find anything to place it as what it is other than saying, if you went with the first appearance argument, which I've already told you I don't agree with. If you're going to quote me Hulk 180, number one, that was before the internet, so who was making that decision? Secondly, I have it on good authority from the OGs in the game that old school comic book stores considered Hulk 180 a first appearance until things like grading companies and Overstreet and places like that started naming 181 as the first appearance. And if you're going to bring up Venom, yeah, I think 299 is the first appearance of Venom. So
didn't this have something to do with some of that also?
Yes, that's what I was talking about. That Marvel put that out, and they agree. So Taskmaster's first appearance, 195, if you ask me. And again, apparently if you ask Marvel, I don't think Uncanny 266 is Gambit's first appearance because he was in that Uncanny X-Men, I think, 14 annual. So, I think that a lot of this is just wishful thinking and false comparisons. And I said this to Mighty Mel V on the Drunken Chat. I appeared in the last 2 hours of his giant 8-hour marathon. I was completely sober, though. I can't say the same for the rest of my...
They gave you crap for drinking water, right?
Yeah, it was like 5 in the morning, man. Who could start drinking at 5 in the morning? But yeah, so, we talked about it then, and I made the comment to Mel V. I said, certainly as a country, we've learned you can't just continue to do something because that's the way it's always been done. Tradition is good, but sometimes when you're making a mistake, you got to course correct. And as a comic community, we need to course correct, just pointing to these couple issues and saying, well, because those books were that, therefore everything that comes after it is that. Because I think we were making mistakes in the hobby. Look, I love Topher, and I love True Firsts, but I'm not arguing that, like, Daredevil 115 is Wolverine's first appearance, which features, if you're not aware, a advertisement for a Hulk 181 and Wolverine, or just the first appearance of Wolverine. I'm not arguing that. I certainly see the value in it, but I'm not trying to make that argument. I'm simply saying, what does first appearance mean to you? It means first appearance. If I walk into a room for the first time, that's my first appearance in the room. I don't have to say 3 words for me to have just appeared in the room. That's not how it works. I don't have to stay in the room for 10 minutes for me first appearing in the room. That's not how it works. There's no panel requirements. There's no word requirements. We don't have that defined. And who other than CBSI, in my opinion, you can say Overstreet, you can say all these other places, but we are certainly an authority on these things. And now we as CBSI, we're a collective, so we don't always even among ourselves all agree. But that's how I feel, and I feel very strongly about it. So yeah, I look at things like Venom 299 and Hulk 180 as almost undervalued keys in the market, especially Venom 299, just slept on. I know that those cover appearances are sexy, guys. I know that you want those, and I know that sometimes you miss out on a book and you're hoping 96 is a first appearance. But the reality of the situation is 95 is hot for a reason. But you may be saying, Mr. Bolo, you're really negative on 96. No, again, it's a connector issue. 97 is important. 95 is important. We're on the road to 100, such a monumental moment in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles history. People are going to want that set from 95 to 100. They're going to want to see how this Jenica story plays out. And you can't have that set without 96. And because we talked about where FOC was on 96, there wasn't enough time for stores to really truly react to 95 and get those orders up on 96. They were able to. They had a small window, but it wasn't very big, and it was reflected in the shortage that we're seeing in the market of this book, which is why it's going over cover. I don't think this book is going so high over cover because there's a first appearance. I don't care what people put in their eBay titles. Let's be honest. People will put that in their eBay title for the next 4 books if they think that helps them sell a book better. The reality of the situation is it happened because people wanted this book and couldn't buy it. And that's the law of supply and demand. And that works in comics time in and time out. Comics is a hobby, but it's retail. And that's my profession. That's what I went to college for. I've seen it time and time again. And anytime that you have just such a demand for a book and the supply cannot match it, you're going to see that happen. But I will tell you, there'll be a lot more 97s on the market because of those store variants, because of people having a little extra time to get that order. And 97 will be more readily available. But when you're comparing a typical 10,000 print run, even if there's 40 or 50,000 comics out there, which would be huge for a Ninja Turtle run, Marvel releases books with 3, 4, 500,000 print runs. I still think there's going to be a shortage on the market. You're not going to see. Don't expect to see these crazy $50 returns on 97 and beyond.
Right.
But yeah, 96 is a long-term play because people are going to want that set. People are going to want that book, and I think it's going to have value long-term, regardless of whether or not you can put a cool label on it.
So there we have Jack's long-term play for the week. And that's going to conclude our Bolo list for the week, right?
Yes.
So, you guys in the chat, or if you're watching on the replay, let us know what books you guys were checking out this week that didn't make the list. Like, I know Avengers was one. I was talking about Category 0, but there's a bunch of books that come out every week. Make sure you let us know in the comments what might or might not have been on the Bolo list. So that way we're also aware when Jack makes the list going forward. He puts on there's a reader, it's called Buzz because he has Zero out to listen for it. And if he's not hearing it, it's not going on the list.
Yeah, and also, guys, my DMs are open. Feel free to comment on, any of my content and let me know. Even if it's like I put a picture up of my Canto haul, and you want to say, hey, Mr. Bolo, be on the lookout for this book next week. Let me know, man. That's what it's here for. At @AKA_Mr. Bolo. Let me know. Let me know what's going on. Let me know what you're seeing in the market because, again, that's what we want to do is we want to be able to communicate with you guys. This isn't a couple talking heads on a channel, trying to inflate ourselves. We want to communicate. We want this to be interactive between us.
Right. And then again, thanks to Anthony tonight and everyone else for all the super chats. I can't thank you guys enough for that. That's record night for this show, especially with super chats. But one thing else, we've been discussing it, especially after last week. Would you guys still want to see this as a live show or actually like a live premiere where we record the show and then have a live chat and participate in the chat with you guys as well? But we want to hear from you whether you prefer it live or wouldn't mind it being a premiere.
Yeah, because the benefit of doing it pre-recorded, if you guys aren't understanding what Brian's saying, is it means that we can then be more active discussing live in the chat. If you guys would rather have us talking live on the mic, that's fine too. And I think, there's certainly Simpleman's Comics family members holding down the chat. But, you guys let us know what you like. Do you like the live off the cuff? Do you want... And even if we do it, honestly, even if we pre-record it, we still one-taked it. It's still kind of the same thing. And also it gives Brian less to do if we don't record it. So, he doesn't have to, worry about all of these stream drops and stuff like that. So, again, and I'm not trying to sell pre-recording it. I'm just giving you all the information.
Yeah. So, yes, definitely let us know, especially in the comments, and then we'll make a decision that way. But either way, I'm good with it live or premiered. But also, make sure you check out the channel tomorrow night at 9 p.m., right?
Absolutely. New content alert.
Yeah. So, we'll have a new video dropping tomorrow at 9 p.m. Jack, is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Well, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and let them know. Tomorrow, 9 p.m., we will be dropping the CBSI Hot 10 comic video right here on Simpleman's Comics YouTube channel, the official CBSI network. This is not a singular decision. It has really nothing to do with the Hot 10 show. Or, again, shout out to Comic Tom. Comic Tom's my guy. Did an amazing job with that show. It's been about Comic Tom. It honestly has nothing to do really with him. We have content plans. I've been telling you guys for kind of weeks and months on the channel, we have content plans going on. So if you guys watch the Hot and Cold show, you're familiar with guys like Mike Morello. Mike Morello is going to be bringing a Cover Tunes show to the Simpleman's Comics YouTube channel. You guys may be familiar with Peter Reyna. Peter Reyna is going to be bringing Dollar Bin Digging to the Simpleman's Comics YouTube channel. So he's going to school you guys to some undervalued dollar bin books to keep your eye out for. That's basically an entire Bolo show in and of itself. So we are developing a network of CBSI content that will be hitting the channel. Also, True First by Topher, a.k.a. The Mass Speculator, a.k.a. FOMO the Puppet. I'm going to be recording a solo debut episode of that sometime in the next few days. Brian will edit it up, do all the jazz that makes me look good, and we'll have that for you on the channel. I'm very excited about the topic of the debut episode of True First, but I'm going to go ahead and keep that to myself. But I will tell you guys for sure, make sure you are heading to comicbookinvest.com. Check out the articles. Check out, if you guys aren't, I know we plug it every week, but make sure you're heading to comicbookinvest.com. Make sure you're reading these guys' work, because everything that we do on the channel is only a portion of what you see on the website. And there's so many articles that are so amazing, like Clint Joslin's Run the Table, Dan Piercy's Reading Pile. I shouldn't start naming them because then I start leaving people out, but there are just so many awesome ones. And like we said, we want this to be interactive. Let us know, what of those pieces do you want to see an interactive version on the channel? And because we are paying attention. Brian and I can't record everything, so we've got to outsource some of that to the guys, and we've got to get them acclimated with the video content. But that was the point of the Hot and Cold show. The Hot and Cold show was just the seed. That was just the start of everything. So we are excited to bring you guys this content. I'm riding the wave of that G.I. Joe and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles heat. But, you know, we're going to bring to you guys a bunch of new content, and we're excited to do it. And we're hoping to get to the point where 7 days a week we're dropping a new, regularly scheduled CBSI piece of content. And I'm also going to say one last thing about tomorrow. We have a major giveaway for the debut of the Hot 10 show. So make sure you guys are watching. Ben C., the owner of CBSI, he has committed to doing a major giveaway from one of our partners, one of our collaborators through CBSI every week for the CBSI Hot 10 show on Simpleman's Comics YouTube channel. And I know what book it is for tomorrow, and it is incredible. So I'm going to keep that to myself. It'll be a little bit of a surprise, but you guys are going to need to tune in tomorrow at 9 p.m. to check that out.
Yeah, that's crazy because I don't even know what book it is.
But, see? I got a secret from you, too.
Yeah. But yeah, and then for those that might be wondering, because a lot of people like to read the articles, and then they hear something mentioned about a video to be a companion to the article. The articles aren't going away. If that's what you like to do and you like to read those articles, they're always going to be there at comicbookinvest.com.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people going, oh, and I don't want everything to be a video. Not everything's a video, but there is companion content for it. So...
yeah, our goal is just to spread out and shine a light on the excellent work. What we do, what CBSI is, it's a website. It's the written word. But what Brian and I are trying to do is just get that in front of as many people as possible. So that's the point of these shows. The website's not going away. The articles aren't going away. That's the home base. And there's so much more content on that site than you could ever get from a YouTube channel. So check out comicbookinvest.com. And like Brian said, none of these articles are going anywhere. They're going to stay as they are, and we just want to bring them to a new audience, the YouTube comic community.
Right. So definitely appreciate everyone joining the live chat tonight, especially dealing with the YouTube stream difficulties where it kind of cut out for a minute, and I think it was still going and then caught up because if I remember correctly, I might have said a bad word or two during that time. But appreciate everyone joining us each and every Thursday, and then Wednesday, of course, we have the Hot and Cold, and then now we're adding Friday, the live premieres for the new CBSI Hot 10 comics. Jack, last words?
Hey, again, I just want to say, appreciate all of the super chats. The money's great. The love means so much more to me. Again, we needed that today in a real way, so we appreciate that. And yeah, just be on the lookout. Big things coming. And again, buy what you like. You know, you'll never be unhappy with your collection.
Right. So, appreciate it. And we will see you guys tomorrow at 9 in the live chat for the new CBSI Hot 10 video.
Yes, we will be there.